I spent 4 years building something they never thought I could finish, and on the day I was supposed to celebrate it, they chose a timeshare presentation in Orlando over me. My name is Grace Evans, I'm 23 years old, and this is about the moment I realized that sometimes the people who brought you into this world don't actually want to see you succeed in it. The morning of my graduation from Michigan State University started with my phone buzzing at 6 a.m., the screen lighting up my dorm room with that cold blue glow that always meant bad news. My roommate Sarah was already gone, probably getting her hair done with her mom at some salon in East Lansing, and I was staring at a text message from my mother that made my stomach drop like I'd swallowed a stone. Honey, your father and I won't be able to make it today. We got this amazing opportunity for a resort preview in Florida, and they're offering us a free weekend if we attend today. We'll celebrate with you next month. So proud of you, sweetie. I read it 3 times, each time feeling something different crack inside my chest. The first read was disbelief, the second was humiliation, the third was something darker that I didn't have a name for yet. I called my mom immediately, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. She answered on the 4th ring, and I could hear my father laughing in the background, the sound of clinking glasses, like they were already at some hotel bar celebrating their free vacation. Mom, are you serious right now? Grace, don't be dramatic. It's just one day. You'll have the diploma whether we're there or not. Her voice was light, dismissive. The same tone she'd used when I was 12 and crying because they missed my piano recital for my dad's fishing trip. The same tone from when I was 16 and they skipped my award ceremony because they had concert tickets. I'd heard this voice my entire life. But something about hearing it today, on this particular morning, made my vision go blurry with tears I refused to let fall. I worked for 4 years. I'm the first person in our family to graduate college. You told me you'd be here. And we wanted to be, baby, but this opportunity came up last minute. These resort previews are very exclusive. Besides, your brother will take pictures for us. My brother Jake was 17 and had explicitly told me 2 days ago that he thought college was a scam and that I was an idiot for going into debt for a piece of paper. The idea of him being my only family representation at the most important day of my life so far made me want to throw my phone through the window. You're choosing a timeshare pitch over your daughter's graduation. Grace, you're being selfish. We never get opportunities like this. We'll make it up to you. She hung up before I could respond. And I sat there on my dorm bed in my underwear and an old t-shirt, my graduation dress hanging on the closet door, royal blue because my mother said it would photograph well, and I realized with perfect clarity that they were never going to make it up to me because this was who they were. This was who they'd always been. Sarah came back an hour later and found me doing my makeup with the kind of precision that came from rage. My hands were steady now, and my face in the mirror looked calm, but she knew me well enough to see something had shifted. They're not coming, are they? Nope. Timeshare presentation in Orlando, free weekend, very exclusive opportunity apparently. Grace, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I'm going to walk across that stage and get my diploma, and I'm going to smile like I'm the happiest person alive, and then I'm going to figure out what to do about the fact that my parents are the kind of people who do this. The ceremony was at Breslin Center. Thousands of graduates in caps and gowns, the air thick with perfume and cologne, and the papery smell of programs being fanned in the heat. I sat in my assigned section surrounded by strangers, watching other people's families cheer and hold up signs and cry. And when they called my name, Grace Marie Evans, Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, summa cum laude, I walked across that stage with my head high and my smile perfect, and the applause was polite and distant because nobody there knew me well enough to scream. Sarah's parents cheered for me, bless them. Mrs. Chen literally stood up and yelled, "That's our Grace," like I was her own daughter, and it made me cry right there in front of everyone. But I kept walking. I kept smiling. I got my diploma and shook hands with the dean and walked off that stage with a piece of paper that cost me $60,000 in student loans and 4 years of 16-hour days. Afterwards, Sarah's family took me to dinner at Sansu Sushi. They ordered champagne and made toasts and asked me about my job offer at an automotive design firm in Detroit. And I answered their questions and laughed at the right moments. And the whole time, I was thinking about my parents drinking complimentary mojitos by a resort pool 700 miles away. My phone buzzed around 8 p.m., a text from my mom. "How did it go? Send pictures." I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and got drunk on sake with Sarah and her parents and some of our engineering cohort friends. And somewhere around midnight, sitting on the curb outside a bar on Grand River Avenue, Sarah asked me what I was going to do. I don't know yet, but I know I'm done being the person they can just ignore whenever something shinier comes along. What I didn't tell her was that I'd been thinking about something my father said 3 months earlier. During one of his rare phone calls, he'd been complaining about money, about how he and my mom were never going to be able to retire, how they'd made bad investments and never saved properly, and then he'd said, almost as an afterthought, "Good thing we'll have you to take care of us when we're old, right, Gracie?" He'd laughed when he said it, but I heard the expectation underneath, the assumption that of course I would be their retirement plan, that my engineering salary and my careful saving and my responsibility would compensate for their decades of poor choices and misplaced priorities. I started my job at Morrison Automotive Design in September, a small firm in Detroit's New Center area that specialized in electric vehicle components. The pay was good, $72,000 a year to start, which felt like a fortune after 4 years of ramen and library coffee. I got a small apartment in Midtown, nothing fancy, just a studio with exposed brick and windows that looked out onto Woodward Avenue. And I started building my life with the kind of focus I'd learned in engineering school, every decision measured, every variable accounted for. My parents called once a week, usually on Sunday afternoons. The conversations were always the same. My mother would ask vague questions about my job and then spend 20 minutes talking about their lives, my father's back problems, their leaking roof, the cost of groceries, their disappointing vacation to Branson, and inevitably the conversation would turn to money. "Your father's thinking about retiring early. His back just can't take the factory work anymore." My dad worked at a GM plant in Flint, the same job he'd had for 30 years, good pay, union benefits, a pension that would have been enough if they hadn't refinanced their house 3 times and bought a boat they used twice and maintained my mother's shopping habit that filled their garage with QVC purchases still in boxes. Does he have enough saved? Well, that's the thing, honey. We were hoping maybe you could help us figure out a plan. You're good with numbers. This conversation happened in October. I was sitting at my desk in my apartment, looking at my own spreadsheet, my student loan payoff schedule, my retirement contributions, my emergency fund. I'd calculated that if I was aggressive, I could be debt-free in 7 years and have a comfortable nest egg by 40. "I can look at your finances if you want, help you make a budget." "Oh, we don't need a budget, sweetie. We just need to know we can count on you if things get tight. Family takes care of family, right?" There it was, the expectation delivered with the same casual lightness my mother used for everything, and I felt that dark thing from graduation morning stir in my chest again. "Let me think about it, Mom." I didn't help them plan. Instead, I started researching. I pulled my credit report and found that my parents had opened a credit card in my name when I was 16, maxed it out, and let it go to collections, destroying my credit score before I even knew what credit was. I'd spent 2 years in college rebuilding it, disputing the fraud, dealing with collection agencies, and they'd never mentioned it, not once. I also discovered that they'd cashed out my college fund, the one my grandmother had set up for me before she died, $8,000 that was supposed to pay for my textbooks and housing. They'd taken it during my sophomore year to buy the boat that was now sitting in their driveway with a for sale sign that had been there for 18 months. I didn't confront them, not yet. I just kept collecting information, kept being the dutiful daughter on Sunday phone calls, kept building my life in Detroit while they built their expectations in Flint. Christmas came and they invited me home. I drove the hour north on I-75 in a snowstorm, my little Honda sliding on black ice. And when I got to their house, a small ranch on the outskirts of town, I found it exactly as I'd left it, cluttered, vaguely dirty, filled with things they didn't need and couldn't afford. My brother Jake was there with his new girlfriend, both of them vaping in the living room and playing video games, and my parents were in the kitchen arguing about the cost of the ham my mother had bought. My father hugged me, his back brace visible under his shirt, and said, "There's our successful career woman, come to slum it with the working class." He meant it as a joke, But I heard the resentment, the implication that my success was somehow a judgment of his choices. And maybe it was. Dinner was tense. My mother drank too much wine and kept making comments about how I must be lonely in the city, how I should move back home to save money, how family was more important than career. And my father kept steering the conversation back to his retirement, how he'd finally decided to pull the trigger in March, how they were going to have to downsize, how expensive everything was. Of course, we're counting on you to help out, Gracie. You're doing so well, and we sacrificed so much for you to get that education. I set down my fork, the sound loud in the sudden silence. Sarah had asked me what I was going to do, and I'd said I didn't know, but sitting there in that kitchen, watching my mother's expectant face and my father's entitled smile, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Actually, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about that, about the sacrifices you made for my education. My mother beamed, thinking I was about to offer them money, and I almost felt bad for what was coming next. Almost. I pulled my credit report a few months ago, found something interesting. A credit card opened in my name in 2018 when I was 16, maxed out and sent to collections, took me 2 years to fix, cost me about $3,000 in higher interest rates on my student loans because my credit was trashed. The smile faded from my mother's face. My father's expression went carefully blank. Grace, that was a misunderstanding. We were going to pay that back. And my college fund, the one Grandma set up? $8,000 gone. Used to buy a boat that you've been trying to sell for over a year now. We needed that money. Times were tough. You don't understand the pressure we were under. And my graduation, the one you skipped for a timeshare presentation that I do understand. I understand perfectly, actually. My brother was watching now, his girlfriend uncomfortable and silent. And I felt bad for doing this at Christmas. But then again, they hadn't felt bad about doing any of those things to me. So here's the thing. You keep talking about how I'm going to help you in retirement, how family takes care of family. And you're right, family should take care of family. So I'm going to take care of the family member who actually showed up for me, who actually sacrificed for me, who actually deserves it. Grace, what are you talking about? I'm talking about me. I'm the family member I'm going to take care of. Every dollar I make, every bonus, every raise, it's going toward my life, my future, my retirement. You want to retire at 60 with no savings and a house you can't afford? That's your choice. But it's not my problem. My father stood up, his face red. After everything we've done for you, you're going to abandon us? You abandoned me first, Dad, repeatedly. You chose a timeshare pitch over my college graduation. You stole my identity and ruined my credit. You took my inheritance and bought a boat. So yeah, I'm choosing me, just like you've been choosing yourselves my entire life. I left before they could respond, drove back to Detroit through the snow with my hands shaking and my heart pounding, and when I got home, I blocked their numbers, changed my address with my bank, and made myself a cup of tea. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without anxiety dreams about drowning in debt, while my parents floated past me on a boat I'd paid for. The calls started in January. They went to voicemail, messages from my mother crying about how I was breaking her heart, messages from my father demanding I call them back, messages from my brother saying I was being a selfish witch. I listened to each one once, then deleted them. I didn't respond. In March, my father retired. I know because my aunt called me from a number I hadn't blocked. She told me they'd had to move to a smaller apartment, that they were struggling, that I should help them because they were family. I thanked her for letting me know and then blocked her number too. I kept working, kept saving, kept building. I paid off my highest interest student loans by June, started maxing out my retirement contributions, opened a brokerage account, and bought index funds. I took a vacation to Colorado by myself, hiked in Rocky Mountain National Park, and stood at the top of a trail at sunset, watching the sky turn purple and gold. And I didn't think about them once. On what would have been my grandmother's 85th birthday, I donated $8,000 to a scholarship fund at Michigan State for first-generation engineering students. I specified that the money should go to students whose families couldn't or wouldn't support their education. And I thought about how my grandmother would have been proud of that, proud of me for knowing the difference between family and people who just share your DNA. My parents sent a card to my office in December, forwarded through some cousin who still had my work address. Inside was a photo of them standing in front of their new apartment, looking older and tired, and a note that said, "We hope you're happy. We hope this is what you wanted. We have nothing now, and you have everything. Merry Christmas from the parents you threw away." I looked at that photo for a long time, studied their faces, the lines around my mother's mouth, the slump in my father's shoulders, and I felt something, but it wasn't guilt. It was something cleaner, sharper. It was the understanding that they'd built their lives on a foundation of poor choices and borrowed time. And when that foundation crumbled, they'd expected me to be the ground they landed on. But I'd moved, I'd built my own foundation somewhere else, somewhere stable, and the space where I used to stand was empty now, and that emptiness was theirs to figure out. I threw the card away, went back to my spreadsheet, and adjusted my retirement contribution up another 2%. By my calculations, I'd be able to retire at 55 with a portfolio worth over $2 million. Comfortable, secure, independent. Everything they'd never been. Everything they'd never taught me to be. Everything I'd learned in spite of them. They chose a free weekend in Orlando over watching me achieve something they never could. So I chose a free future over funding the retirement they never planned for, and if that makes me the villain in their version of this, I can live with that, because in my version, I'm the only hero I ever needed.